This is Ed from Exotic Blanks, and once again it's time for Sunday Night at the Movies. Tonight we're going to take a blank that is cross-cut and is therefore a little bit susceptible to breaking apart, and we're going to show a few ways that you can get better results when you try to turn blanks like this. This is interesting wood because when you make a pen out of it, it is really a nice looking pen. It has grain going counter to the direction of the pen, and that will give you some chatoyance from time to time. It also gives you generally very nice looking spalting. There's a lot of things you can do if you learn to handle this wood, but it isn't necessarily turner friendly. This is something that you need to do a few things to before you make or attempt to make the pen, or you are likely to have difficulty with it. So let's get started with a few of the tips that I've found successful in turning difficult materials. If you watch the drilling process, you'll see that it's not bringing out little bits of sawdust. It's actually bringing out tiny, what we'd call ribbons if we were turning plastic. The pieces are clearly chips, not little tiny sawdust. What that means, at least I believe what it means, is that the drill bit is relatively sharp, and it is cutting. It's not just burning its way through the blank. So I've used a relatively sharp bit, and as a result of that, my drilling is pretty successful, and I have a nice clean hole. The next thing that you can do to reinforce this now is to take some thin CA glue and actually pour it into the hole while you hold the other side of the hole closed. So what you're doing is creating a chamber in there that you can take the thin CA and coat the inside of the blank with a thin CA. If we think about this, the part that's left when we make a pen is the part that is closest to the hole. When you're done, you're going to be very close to your brass tube. The brass tube is going to go in the hole, and so the wood that we are trying to coat with thin CA is the wood that's going to end up being the pen. So I go back and forth with this a couple of times and shake it and so forth. And as you can see, it doesn't stick to the glove, so all of the glue was used. So I go back and put a little bit more glue in it. And again, I'll shake it for a little while and see if I can get that glue to absorb into the wood. If the glue does not absorb into the wood, it will instead drip out on the towel that I'm going to put down. And you'll see that when it drips out, that means that I've probably gotten about as much in there as I can get in. I will now set that aside for the night and let it completely cure, and then we'll have to re-drill this blank. It's not going to be the same size hole anymore, but we have reinforced the wood that's ultimately going to turn out to be the pen. You can see the drips on there. That tells you that, yes, the glue came out of the pen, or out of the blank. Now I'm going to put glue on all four sides of the blank to reinforce that again, because we know that we're doing cross grain. When you're doing cross grain, you have the ability to tear it apart pretty well. So that's what I'm doing. I'm reinforcing the cross grain on one side, then I'll flip it over. Wait until you see that most of the glue has absorbed into the wood before you try to flip it over or do anything with it. Otherwise, you're going to find it's glued to whatever it is that it was close to. That's all there is to that section of it. A day or two later, I check it and re-drill it, and as you can see, I'm checking the hole to make sure that it is the right size now. It's been re-drilled, and it's ready now to put the tube into it and glue the tube in. So I do that and use thick CA, and once again, I wait for a day or so. I believe in letting CA cure for a day. I recognize that everybody says it will only take an hour or whatever. That may be. But I've had very few problems with my tube slipping or any of the rest of those things because, in my opinion, it's because I let this sit for a long time before I do the next stage. So we go on to turning it, and I'm turning, as you can see, with a 1-inch roughing gouge. It's because there are corners on this piece. It was square. I feel that it's easier to use a roughing gouge, and it's less likely to shatter the blank. Even though I've reinforced it with CA, I still try to respect it a little, give it as much chance of survival as possible. As you can see, I will come in from both of the two sides, the two corners, and try to take that down so that it's rounded as it gets to the bushings. This will give you a little bit better support, I think. You can see that this does have a really nice spalting to it. It's a really nice piece of wood. So it would be good to get a pen out of it, and I will. I'm recording this after the pen is finished, so I can say with great certainty we will get one. After I did the rough gouge turning, I once again go back and put a thin CA coating on it. At this point, there's not an awful lot of wood that I'm going to be turning off. So what I'm really doing is reinforcing what's going to turn out to be the pen part of this blank. And it turns out to be a really nice looking pen. And as you can see, the CA is put on there. And this really smells terrible. So when you do it, make sure that you have good ventilation. Again, I've waited a couple of days after the CA was put onto that, and I'm now coming back to do the final turning on it. I do use a skew because I'm comfortable with a skew, and because it is a nice sharp edge that will take that wood off very cleanly. So we continue to turn that from the ends in is generally the best way. You're trying to make sure that you put as little stress on this as you can. As you can see, I take relatively thin cuts. There isn't a lot to it. What I'm turning here is the new pen that we have, the Zap Cap, which is essentially a magnetic cap pen, and I'm trying to make one to use as a demonstrator that I'll carry with me. So this is kind of a large pen. The actual finished dimension of it was a little over half an inch. It was 515 if I recall properly. So it's a simple pen to turn, but because this is a cross grain blank, it makes it a little bit more challenging, but it will make a very nice looking pen when I'm finished. So that was the purpose, and as you can see, the turning with the skew is going fine. This is all done in real time. I didn't edit any of this to take out any of the turning. One of the reasons for that is that the total time of this is about 8 minutes. And I want to make it clear that you can, although there's a lot of time that you spend waiting for glue to set, there isn't an awful lot of time invested in the actual pen. So people say, well, it's going to take you forever to turn something that's that difficult. Well, yeah, it's a little challenging, but at the same time, good things are worth a little extra effort. And if you put in the extra effort, you'll get a beautiful pen. So this is Ed from Exotic Blanks. We'll end this with a picture of the actual pen, and good turning to you, and thank you for watching. This is Sunday Night at the Movies from Exotic Blanks. Bye now.